How we doing, everybody? Thank you for joining us here on the Ravori Sports, what we're calling this year the Ravori Sports Conversation. So this is our interview series. We're going to be doing this all the way up until September when we kick off for the next NFL season. So thank you very much for joining us here on our first one the night before the Super Bowl as you're watching it, not as we're recording it. Thank you very much. Definitely check it out real quick. 2026 preseason predictions video is coming in March. So that's the week before the NFL season starts. Tomorrow we're going to have Super Bowl coverage all day. So we're going to have it right before pregame and postgame, 3 o'clock on Driving to the Top and Ravori Sports Podcast, and right on after the game as well. Genesis Notary Services /Facebook.com. So definitely check that out as well. RavoriSports.company.site. Absolutely check that out. And also see Charles Harris. We are LegalShield.com. Legal Shield, definitely check it out. It's a great resource for everybody out there. And we got Smoking JB.
Yes. How you doing today?
I am awesome from the Huddle Sports Network here, from the South Florida Tribune. Outstanding writer, Lions commentator. This guy during the open mic, if you've ever watched one of our open mics, this guy is the stat guy for the Lions. He stumped the Schwab for the Detroit Lions. There is an Eddie stat that he's not gonna pull out. I know the stat right.
I like paying attention to the stats because when people say something's bad, I'm going to tell them why it's bad and give the stat that changed. Because you look at us, we were still like the fourth or fifth best scoring offense. We were like third in overall yardage per game. What fell off last year? We were number one in third down conversion rate. This year, we were 28. That's a huge fall off. To go from number one to 28 in 1 year is huge. But that had to do with the offensive line.
Let's go ahead and let's talk Lions here real quick. Somewhat disappointing, yes. I mean, considering the expectation of the team, they kind of finished a little bit below expectation. You did lose Ben Johnson in the offseason. You did lose some coordinators. You did lose Aaron Glenn. So that's what happens when you have a good football team. Overall, what would you think? What you think of the Lions season in general, and what do you think the fans are as far as the Lions it's right now?
For me, it was disappointing. I expected a little fall off, and I said that immediately. I said, for you to expect us to hit 15 wins again with a tougher schedule and with the loss of the coordinators combined, that's ridiculous. I did expect around an 11-win season is what I thought. Because looking at the schedule, I thought there was 5 or 6 games that were going to be tough. Now, granted, a couple of those teams that I thought were going to be tough, we cakewalked over. It was like, wait a minute, we're beating these really good teams and we're losing to these teams that aren't having good years. And at the end of the day, 9-8 isn't horrible, but after winning the division 2 years in a row, ooh, it hurts.
Tell me about Goff. I was just reading right before we came on here about Stafford and the Lions fans, some of them wanting Stafford to come back, maybe with his contract or whatever it is. Goff, I think, is a solid quarterback. Kind of like middle tier, upper middle tier, if you want to put him there. I had him in the top 10 to start last year. Where fans at on Goff, you think?
Most of them are there with you. There's a few of them that want him gone because they say he's unathletic. I said, but you want Stafford back, who isn't any more athletic than Goff is. That makes no sense. If you're going to do something like that, you do a total switch. And I think it starts by drafting a developmental quarterback, because right now, I'm pretty sure Goff's going to get restructured because there's no way we can afford that $69.6 million cap hit this year. So I think he's going to get restructured. It'll get stretched out over 3 years. He's still getting his money, but they'll put a couple void years on the back of it to make that cap hit get down there around that 40 to 45 million, which is where all of the good to great quarterbacks get paid that aren't considered elite?
I think like the quarterback thing is so tough. I think we're seeing it this year, aren't we? With Darnold and Drake May in the Super Bowl. It doesn't have to be Pat Mahomes on your team to actually win football games, right?
Or
I mean,
Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen or
it
any of them?
doesn't. Yeah, I mean, you look at that Drake May's never been there. Sam Darnold, they're still making jokes, even though he's in
Right,
the Super Bowl.
right.
It can be done.
And a lot of
I,
people owe him an apology as much as they trashed him at the beginning of the season because of that playoff game last year. Where
oh, the whole
I,
narrative changes if he can hold up that Lombardi Trophy
right,
on Sunday. Like the whole narrative changes with him.
because he has been under pressure from that Seahawks line because they dealt with injuries all year. He didn't get pressured as much as he did at the Vikings. Because let's face it, J.J. McCarthy, Max Brosmer, and Carson Wentz were sacked 60 times this year. They just don't have the highest sack quarterback because they had 3 starters throughout the season instead of just one. That title belongs to, I believe, C.J. Stroud this year.
Oh, the Seahawks line wasn't very good. I mean, we were all saying that. I don't think it's still really good. I think their
It
left side is good, but I don't
I,
think they're
it
as a
it
whole they're really good.
it helped with Charles Cross, the right tackle, coming back healthy. That made a big difference in that Rams game. You could see it. They weren't hitting him in his face. It was whenever Verse got free on the blind side. So yeah, the left side's very good, but they still give up some pressures. But he wasn't having a guy in his grill in 2.5 seconds anymore. So that was what made the difference in that Rams game. The game before, when Cross was out, that was a shootout for about a quarter. For about a quarter. And then the injuries started to pile up. And finally, we saw that they couldn't blood sacrifice to keep Christian McCaffrey on the field anymore either.
I you're right about that. Goff, I said the strength he had the year before was Goff is a top 5 quarterback with no pressure. He'll just carve you right up. Last year, the Lions, I would say, had the best offensive line in the NFL. Then you had issues with Ragnow and retiring and all that other stuff as well.
You know what the
So,
crazy thing
do
is?
you think they get that fixed in the offseason? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. The crazy thing is he actually was second in touchdowns, tied with Stafford in interceptions for the year in 8, which was, I think, either tied for 3rd or 4th in the NFL. And then he also threw for 4,500 yards, which is actually 3rd in the NFL. So he still had a top 5 quarterback numbers despite being hit. I don't know how else to say it than like a hooker next to a Navy base after payday. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. But yeah, I think they're going to at least get a vet tackle. I don't think it's going to be one of the top tier guys, and I don't think we'll get Linderbaum because we don't have that type of money. Linderbaum's going to be looking for that 25, 30 million a year center, highest paid center in the league money, and he
Linderbaum,
deserved it. And he
I think
deserved
that's
it.
why he hasn't signed with the Ravens either. He's playing hardball with them.
Right. He
He
wants to
has
be
a
there. He said he wants to be there, but he wants to be respected and paid at the same time. His exact words that he said at the end of the season. I paid attention to those end of season pressers too, because everybody said, "Oh, we should get Linderbaum." I think we'd be better off to get McGovern, the safety that know Drew Petzing's system out of Arizona, and even get their swing tackle, who may end up being a starter depending on who we draft in the first round, and Jonah Williams, because both of them had good years for Arizona. It was the running game that disappeared because let's face it, they were on running back 6 the last 6 weeks of the season. You're not going to run the ball very good when you're on your 6th running back for the year.
Dan Campbell, as far as that goes. It's hard not to like Dan Campbell. I'm serious. It's hard not to root for the guy. I can just see it through the screen. I can see it through everything like that as well.
You,
How good of
feel,
a coach is Dan Campbell, man?
he's a
I
great
mean, as
field
far
general.
as
He's a great
yeah,
field general. He motivates them players probably better than anybody else in the league. What he isn't is an offensive mind. We saw that this year. We struggled a few off and on here and there, especially on the third down percentage. But the third down percentage wasn't much better with Johnny Morton. The difference was the defense was playing better because Campbell was able to focus on both sides of the ball, helping out his first year play caller in Calvin Shepard.
Calvin Shepard too, man. He was like Dan Campbell Jr., man. The energy that he had. I mean, I got fired up. I mean, every time you saw him on the sideline, he's jumping up and down. he's
clapping guys on the back after every good play, getting in their face when they do something wrong.
He's total opposite of Aaron Glenn.
Right.
Total opposite of Aaron Glenn. That's exactly.
He emulates exactly what Dan Campbell is as a defensive coordinator, and I love it. And I'm glad we were able to keep him. I'm glad that the Dolphins said, no, we're going to go a different way.
Is that important, though, as far as you talk about guys like McVay, like Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Ben Johnson, the strategists, right? You had one in the building, Ben Johnson, as well. Mm-hmm. Then you got a guy like Dan Campbell, Mike Tomlin. I think John Harbaugh's kind of the same, the leader of men type, not necessarily the is that better for the Lions team, or can that take you to the Super Bowl with a guy like that's that guy? Because I agree with you about the motivational thing, running through a wall.
If you look at what we've had here in the past, our best results have been with those player type coaches, because they're the ones that can pull people out of that losing culture. Look at Wayne Fontes when we had Barry Sanders. Look at Jim Caldwell. He was more of a player's coach. Granted, he only had one great season and then three mediocre ones back to back to back. And I understood why we got rid of him, because I saw polar opposites between the first half and the second half in the play calling under Caldwell. First half, we did everything balanced and everything else, and then all of a sudden we go away from the run and it became pass happy. And we ended up having to have 4 to 8 different comeback wins just to make the playoff. So, as much as everybody says, oh, that's great that we got these comeback wins, I said, no, it's not, because you can't always do this. If you have 8 comeback wins and you have 9 wins on the season to make the playoffs, that means you were very close, very, very close to losing 15 games.
I watched being in the division with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I watched that forever. My Tomlin teams were consistently like that. They won games, a lot of games every year, close to the vest, close to the vest, close to the vest, close to the vest, close to the vest. So you can do that. I mean, it's obviously better to obviously be like Kansas City in their prime, more decisive, whatever, big time offense. But you can have games close to the vest if you can teach your team to hold it together, right. As well.
But you have to be able to do it on both sides of the ball. It can't be just one side of the team. That's what I was getting at. With Caldwell, it was one side of the team making it happen because the defense already fell apart from the 2014-15 Lions.
I think you and I have agreed that the Lions defense isn't as bad as what I've heard.
No.
What do you think? I mean, I think the secondary, I think their safeties, man. Branch, I think really where they fell off this year is they didn't have their 2 outstanding safeties, Kerry Joseph and Branch, in the game.
They're the cleanup guys. Branch is the cleanup guy.
I think has got a lot of potential. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Ryan Branch is the cleanup guy. He's the one that cleans up the missed tackles in the front 7 to make it so teams can't get those big runs like we saw gashing us towards the end of the season after Brian Branch had his Achilles tear. Kirby Joseph is our center fielder out there and a ball hawk. He's like a vacuum. If it gets within his reach, he's not letting it get to the receiver. He's snatching it. So without both of them back there, it was a totally different look. And then Terrion Arnold, TA, they call him. If you look through the first 4 weeks, he was a penalty magnet. He had 8 penalties through 4 games. He was leading the league in penalty yardage as a corner. Then the Bengals game happened, and a switch clicked on in his head or something. Because for the 3 quarters he was on the field, Jamar Chase was targeted 9 times with 3 catches for 49 yards and 0 touchdowns. And then he had that shoulder stinger. At least that's what they reported it as, and they kept him out the game. And Jamar Chase finally gets a touchdown versus a backup corner. Imagine that. A backup trying to cover one of the best wide receivers in the league and gives up a touchdown. But When he came back the next week, for the next 4 weeks straight, not a single receiver had more than 50 yards. Not a single receiver had more than 3 catches. He had 5 pass breakups, an interception, and a QBR against of 38.2. That's huge.
I think the defense is not nearly as bad. I think what people are ignoring, I'm not as in love with the front seven, where they're up front. I think that's a bigger thing than what people, outside of Hutchinson, obviously, who's fantastic. But I think that's a bigger thing for them than I think the secondary is, even though the secondary gets all the heat in general.
Yeah, well, when you're not getting your pressure up front, and I'm going to go to a specific date, and it happened just to be coincidentally at the same time that Dan Campbell took over play calling for the OC. We had a Lee McNeil come back in that game just before the bye week and have a great game versus the Buccaneers, and then never looked the same the rest of the season. DJ Reader had been in and out of the lineup with a nagging injury that he had in the offseason that was bothering him. And we saw more of Talik Williams and Roy Lopez. And those guys were working great together to start the season. And that's when AQM and Hutchinson were both able to get sacks, because you're collapsing the pocket from the interior. You can't double up your defensive end. Aleem and Reader took over the starting job, and then through Thanksgiving, those guys disappeared. Why? Because all they had to focus on was the defensive end. Aleem McNeil wasn't getting the push. DJ Reader was a bump and not even making run-stopping plays. So then we start getting gashed in the run game, and then other teams start doing what we do. They started play-actioning and making the young safeties and corners that were filling in for starters fight on stuff. That's going to happen. If you're not getting pressured to that quarterback, and the average pressure rate through Thanksgiving was 4.2 seconds before pressure got there.
Yeah,
that's not good. Because an average quarterback,
NFL quarterback's going to have time to throw.
3 seconds is all they need. You want your pressure getting there somewhere between that 2.3 and 2.7 mark is what you want for it to hit home. And everybody's like, man, he just doesn't look the same. I said, no, he looks exactly the same. He's getting tired. And one of the things that came out in Thanksgiving was everybody was dogging Hutch for having that 4-week span with no sacks. He was on the field 94% of the snaps. That's the most of any defensive end in the league. He had 480 more snaps by Thanksgiving.
They were triple teaming him.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
I saw the summer games. He had 3 guys on him.
By Thanksgiving, he had 480 more snaps than Myles Garrett. By Thanksgiving.
So, two questions I want to ask you real quick.
Okay.
Ben Johnson in Chicago. Ken won't stop talking about it, obviously. Surprised, not surprised from what you saw of him in Detroit?
Well, think about it. I said they looked like an 8 or 9 win team to start the season. And they did. Look at that defense. That defense did not look like an 11-win defense. That defense gave up a boatload of points. Unless they got interceptions, they didn't win. You take that 8 wins and you add in the 3 extra games from last place teams in there, you get 11 wins. They beat some bad teams. Barely. And granted, we did too. I ain't gonna lie. When your defense is giving up points, you need your offense to score more points. They had 8 comeback wins this past year. Do you think they'll do that again next year if that defense doesn't improve?
But with Ben, are you surprised? And I hear you what the reasons were, but are you surprised that he's had the success he's had? Is this like blowing you away or anything like that?
No, because that roster was a good roster. It just needed to be coached right. Let's face it, Matt Eberflus, Matt Nagy. I can't even remember the guy before Matt Nagy. And then Lovie Smith was going into the twilight of his career in the NFL. His style was becoming antiquated. That's why they let him go, and they brought in Mark Tresselman. Wasn't that who it was? Something like that?
Mark Trestman, yeah.
Mark Trestman. He was awful. He didn't last 2 seasons. Then you had Matt Nagy with his Tecmo Bowl playbook, halfback dive, halfback sweep left, halfback sweep right. right, play action, and bomb. That's all he had.
Right.
And then you get Matt Eberflus, who was a defensive mind, great at it. The offense failed. And every year it was the same thing. Draft a rookie, fire the head coach the year before the contract year, get a new coach in the contract year, draft another one at the end of that contract for the coach. It's not
The coach, and I hear you, the coach never got the guy he wanted, and then when the offense struggled, it's the coach's fault. Right. Exactly.
So instead of doing that, because think about it, Ben Johnson didn't get to pick anything as offensive coordinator for Detroit because he was our passing game coordinator. He was working under Dan and under Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn in week 9 did the exact same thing that Johnny Morton did. He argued with Dan Campbell on the sideline. Week 10, what happened? You're not calling plays anymore. The difference is we didn't have a Ben Johnson as a backup plan in the room yet. If we'd had a Ben Johnson to at least take over half of those duties, because let's face it, our tight ends coach was a brand new passing game coordinator. Dan Campbell didn't trust him.
And one more real quick. Greatest line of all time. Is it Megatron or is it Barry Sanders?
That's apples.
Or is it somebody else?
The greatest all time is Jerry Rice. Calvin Johnson is second, maybe third. I'm sorry, Jerry Rice.
But I'm talking about just Lions players.
Lions players. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, Billy Sims, Lem Barney. That's my top 4 ever. And if Goff gets us to a Super Bowl, he jumps them all. I'm just saying. That just getting us there will put him above everybody.
Better than Scott Mitchell?
Oh, please. Scott Mitchell was. Look at that. Did you see his passing percentage that year with all those yards?
Scott Mitchell was a Ravens quarterback. He was the first quarterback of the Ravens. When the Lions cut him, Ched Marchibroda brought him because he thought he was good, and it was horrible. I think he was the only thing he's the only player in the Ravens history to wear 19 because the Baltimore fans were upset because it wasn't retired because of Johnny Unitas. So even though it's a new franchise, they wanted 19 retired, and it is basically retired since then. Nobody else has worn 19.
Right. So Scott Mitchell, what's funny is after he played that 1 year for you and you guys were like, well, this ain't working. You ship him off. He goes to the Dolphins. He comes to the Lions on Thanksgiving Day and throws 6 touchdowns and kicks our butt.
He actually had potential. He was good in the World League. I thought he actually had potential.
If he could have stayed healthy and got his mind to where he concentrated on reading a defense instead of just trusting his arm strength to get the ball to receivers, he might have been a good quarterback. The difference was he didn't have Herman Moore, Brett Perriman, and Johnny Morton on the same team anywhere else than the Lions. That was one hell of a trio. That might be one of the best trios to ever play the game. It's the only time you've seen 3 1,000-yard receivers on the same team.
Well, they had that run and shoot for years too, which is the thing, and that was very cool to look at least. If it didn't always work in the long term for the NFL, but it was very cool to look at. The Detroit Pistons here, right? Your guys here. It's been a while. Yes, 20 years since we've had
21 years.
Yeah, it's been 20 years since we've had this type of, I was surprised when I heard that recently, that it's been that long since you've had the Pistons in. So
2004.
Look, this is why they have a lottery now in the MLB, because if you get the right guy, it could turn the whole thing around. And Cade Cunningham is really the guy that's really turned the whole thing around for the Pistons. I think the East is really wide open. I think the whole league, honestly. I think like there's just outside of OKC, I don't think there's certainly in the East. I mean, the Knicks are supposed to be a good team.
OKC and Denver are the 2 best teams in the West. It's the Pistons, and then whoever you want to throw at second, because there's like 5 teams separated in that same 5.5 to 7 games difference there. They're all right there, the second place to sixth place, I think it is. There's 4 teams that are all within a half game of each other, which is nuts. We've never seen this in the East, like since Chicago Bulls time.
Well, you have the Celtics with that key injury. There's no Tatum, obviously. You got the Pacers with that no Halliburton all year long. I think Cleveland hasn't really shown up with the likes of Bright, and neither have the Knicks. The Knicks did last year, but then they stupidly fired Tom Thibodeau, which was insanity. So
he was the one that was making that work with that young undisciplined players that they have. You see that now that they don't have that disciplinarian that Tom Thibodeau was, which we know it's Julius Randle says, I can't work with them anymore. I'm just saying. I think certain teams need it. A young team needs discipline. A growing team that is no longer young but is budding, because that's what Detroit was when Bickerstaff came in. We went through the young phase the first 3 years with 2 bad coaches. We get rid of Weaver. We pick up a better GM. We pick up Bickerstaff. We got Cade, who's no longer looking like the turnover-prone guy he was because they worked on his fundamentals, his ball handling skills, because that's what he needed. And he also needed to make better distribution decisions. And the last 2 seasons, you've seen it.
Oh, Bickerstaff, that's a good living in Baltimore, man. Like Bernie Bickerstaff was coach long time for the Bullets and the Wizards and all that. He was with the Wizards organization a long time. And when you have a young coach like that, and he grows with the players, the young players so they can improve over time. And that's exactly what happening. There is a difference as good as Cade Cunningham has been. Can he be a guy to be the best player on a championship team, do you think?
I think he can. I think where we need to, we have 3 expiring contracts, and one of them is going to be gone in the offseason. So we have to look at a trade. And I'm not saying make a trade for Giannis, because Giannis has that calf strain. He's 31 years old. And what we all know, plus 30 in the NBA with calf strains that have flared up off and on throughout the season usually equals an Achilles or ACL tear before the end of the season, which means if you're trading for a playoff player, you're not getting a playoff player more than likely. Not when they're over 30 years old. I think MPJ, the guy that plays for the Nets, he's probably their best player who's on the trade block. I think that makes a lot more sense. Get rid of an expiring contract in Tobias Harris, even though he's unk and everybody loves him. We can't afford him next year, and he's getting at that age where he may not want to play next year. And then you either throw in, I think I'd keep Asur because he's more stable as a starter, and I would throw in the other guy, Ronald. I can't think of his last name right now. I'd throw him in because those are 3 expiring contracts, and you can't afford them all.
I'm really looking forward to seeing them in the playoffs and see how because I think it's all wide open for the Pistons in the thing. Is it taking the town a little bit? I mean, it's been a minute. I mean, since they have been.
The town is nuts between them and the Red Wings and the success of the Tigers this past year. In one calendar year, we could end up having all 4 teams. If you think about it. Coming up, a calendar year from now, if the Lions are playing the following week,
I don't think there's a better NHL town in the United States as compared to maybe New York than Detroit is. I don't think there's more interest in the NHL anywhere else. I think definitely in terms of
New York
even when they're not great, which they're usually the Red Wings are usually a good team. But even when they're not great, I think there's more interest in the NHL. It's the only one where I would say New York, I think, is the greatest sports town in terms of interest. Maybe because there's so many daggone people. But I think Detroit, I think, is really a big hockey place. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Hockey town. It's named that. There's only 2 cities named Hockey Town. It's this one in Philadelphia because of all their titles. It has nothing to do with the fact it's a hockey town. It's because of their titles. But
Philadelphia, I think, kind of goes down. Flyers interest, yeah, has the team.
Yeah, it does.
I think that's exactly right.
Right.
I think, like in Detroit, though, it really doesn't. From what I'm seeing, no, you guys are drinking at Verner's.
Yeah, Verner's or Mountain Dew. That's all it is. Yeah, I know. But it's an amazing time to be involved in sports, anything in Detroit right now. That, and of course, if you're a Michigan fan, you're loving the results of the other night's basketball game, because Michigan took it to Michigan State. It looked like a good game through 3 quarters, and all of a sudden, Michigan said, "Okay, let's show them how we play defense."
Well, Dustin May is a fantastic hire.
Yeah,
I mean, with all due respect to Juwan Howard,
he was good, but he was no Dusty May.
This guy is a fantastic. There are some guys that are good college coaches, and this is one. There's Rick Pitino, who couldn't coach in the pros. He's a good college coach. Billy Donovan, kind of the same. Maybe he's closer to both. But some guy, Dusty May is a good college coach. Whatever team he takes over, he's going to win. Whatever the circumstances in, he's going to adjust to. So things like that. And beating Michigan State, I'm sure Michigan fans are tired of losing to Tom Izzo.
Little brother always threw that in our face. You may have football, you may have baseball, you may have hockey, gymnastics, swimming, water polo, and everything else under the sun, but we got basketball, because Izzo's got 2 national championships, and y'all only got 1 in the last 25 years.
Well, Izzo has been there for 40 years.
If we keep playing like this, we'll be tied with Izzo at the end of the season.
So you're saying you're definitely in the blue camp and not in the
I'm in the blue camp. Hey, I don't get me wrong. I love all Michigan teams until they play against mine, which is green. Then it's like F your team. Wow, it's been an amazing time. I'm in the 4th year of doing this. What we do here, Charles, it's amazing. I love it. It became a part of my life that I need. It's not just a want. I need to do it.
We'll get almost, but just real quick, what do you think of the Tigers here? I do think I think they're in the much easier division than the Baltimore Orioles. They're not in the division with the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Blue Jays, who just went to the Super Bowl. I think you're much easier. I don't know about if I'm picking first.
It's a much easier.
I think you got the best pitcher in all of baseball. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's going to arbitration now because the Illiches tried to lowball him. I'm sorry, $13 million less than what he's expecting. So they're taking him to arbitration. I hope he wins and they have to pay him. I don't want to let him go. I want him to stay right here in Detroit because he is the best pitcher in baseball. There hasn't been back-to-back Cy Young winners in a while. I'm just saying.
You had Jack Morris there for years. 2 of my favorite players that were non-Orioles are Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell.
There's a shame for you. Lou Whitaker, the guy that has been a part of a still today record of most double plays turned with Alan Trammell and is not in the Hall of Fame, is a travesty. He had the good batting numbers. He was a 280 batter lifetime. He had over 200 home runs. He had another 175 stolen bases in his career. Get that man in the Hall of Fame.
Best second baseman for about 10 years. I mean, in the American League, I would say.
Yeah, there was him, and then
you could argue they stayed too long, maybe, but that's the only. I mean, but that they were there because they were so good for so long.
But they were still good. They were still good. It was the rest of the team that was dog crap around him.
Yeah.
And Sparky started to get to the point where he didn't remember if he was in the home dugout or the visitors dugout.
I mean, Sparky was. I mean, a lot of the baseball managers, Sparky Anderson, they were the character actors. I think of the thing. I mean, Sparky out the bench, kicking the dirt. Guys like Lou Whitaker. I'm not Lou Whitaker. Lou Piniella. What I meant to say.
Billy
They
Martin.
were Billy Martin. Oh, Billy Martin. I love Billy Martin, man. That's you don't see that anymore.
Best asshole manager in the game. He was.
And hated Steinbrenner.
Hated him with the passion.
They couldn't stand each other.
He hated the fact that he paid Reggie Jackson. What are you doing? Why are you giving him that much money? Because I can. That was George's answer.
That's kind of the thing we talked about pre-camera, how people just got over stuff and just did the job and all that, and just would laugh and just they didn't. Billy Martin and Reggie and Stein had each other, but he kept hiring him back because Billy kept winning. So
they're it's exactly it. Winning cures all ails of personal differences.
Yeah. Let's talk about you here, Jeremy.
All right.
So I think your story was very fascinating. As far as you mentioned, needing to be a content creator now and needing to do what you're doing now. I think that's so important to have that right here. Like, especially at the age, you're a little bit older than I am, I think, right? But you're we at our age, people think we're crazy doing this in some places. So
I'm a Gen Xer. I'll admit it. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm 55 years. I'm 55 years young. I turned 56 in October.
Yeah, I'm not quite. I'll be 49 this year, brother.
Hey, you're almost there. You're almost to that half a dollar.
I'm almost at that. I'm almost at that halfway.
Almost
point.
At that $50. But I'm at the double nickel.
So what tell everybody why you started doing this every day.
2016. My oldest son, the last time I talked to him on the phone, may he rest in heaven, we were talking about that Super Bowl. I'm not going to get into details. We all know which one as soon as I say the two teams. Falcons versus Patriots, 28-3 at halftime. And he's like, man, the Falcons got this in the bag. I said, don't count. Never count out the Patriots. Did I know they were going to end up winning 33 to 31? No, I didn't expect that at all. But it did happen. And he says, before he hung up the phone, the last thing he said was, if that happens, I want you to do something with your sports knowledge. He goes, because you say stuff and it happens. He goes, you're kind of like a Nostradamus of sports.
Why do you think he said that?
Because I will predict.
That's kind of the question I've never asked you. Why do you think? I mean, because a lot of us men, especially, are sports people. Why do you think he wanted you to go into content creation and go into?
Because I would say something to him casually when he would ask me about the Lions. Because when he was young, I used to take him to spring training when it was up there at SBSU in the Great White North of Michigan in springtime, of course. But and we would watch them practice, and it was a blast because it was free. It was at a college, a step above a community college, a Division II school in Saginaw Valley State, and it was just a real blast to go see and meet all the players, because they would walk up to the fence, they'd shake your hand, they'd sign stuff, never charge you a dime, not like it is today because everything's driven by fanatics. The only one that tried to charge us was Scott Mitchell. My son had a Lion shirt that I bought him, and everybody's signing it. And he asked Scott Mitchell to sign it, and he goes, "Have your dad give me $50." I sit there.
I did not plan that with Scott Mitchell, by the way. People are gonna think me.
Yeah. And I literally called him a name that no man should call another man, and I said, "Well, if you weren't acting like a hooker, maybe I would have paid
you." Oh, I know you're capable of.
Yeah,
I listen to you talk. I can tell you hung around a lot of African Americans. I can tell by just tell. Like you can deny that all you want. I could tell.
No. I grew up on the north end of Flint. I went to Beecher my first 3 years of school in kindergarten, first and second grade. I went to a school that was where when I walked in, the Flint Journal, the local paper was there. My picture was on the cover because it was me, my dad, and I was the only white boy in the class. That's no joke. And then when they asked me about my sister, they said if I had any brothers or sister. I said, yeah, I got a sister. Hers little. She's at home. Hers little. You know
I
that.
knew it. I
Yeah.
knew it. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's why I get along with everybody, because I've been raised in an
Mm-hmm.
ethnically diverse background. And when you're raised in that ethnically diverse background, you try not to be offensive, because it triggers things that you don't want
Mm-hmm.
happening the rest of your life.
Um,
And you know what I'm talking
I
about.
I got you. Yeah, I got it. I kind of had a opposite experience to a certain extent. I was kind of when I was about that age, I was the only black kid in white school. So it was middle class, white Jewish area, and I was there as a black kid. It's funny. It was real quick. The my family, the black family, my black family, most of the black family, they thought we were rich kids, right? And so I get around the white kids, right? And we were poor kids. Like, we
Right.
didn't own a house. We were in a nice area, I guess, but like it was so the whole cultural thing. Yeah, you're right. I kind of struggle with that, like in a lot of ways. I
Ebbs
think
and flows.
as I got
You
older,
had
it's helped. Go ahead. I'm
and you
sorry.
had to ebb and flow. You had to ebb
Mm-hmm.
and flow to get along. And that's what I did. And then I moved out to the country where I didn't see anybody other than my skin. And I was like, what is this? I've never seen a school like this before. How do I act?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
I just stayed me. And I stayed me my entire life. And it's why I relate to fans, and it's why I'm growing. I'm
Yeah.
doing it naturally. I'm trying to do it without having to be like some of these channels that buy their subs just to get monetized, to get demonetized in a year because they can't afford to keep buying them. You know,
Right,
because
right,
there's
right.
that little rule with YouTube. If you read the monetization things, it says once you hit your monetization, if anybody goes 6 months inactive, they remove them from your channel subscribers.
I know. Yeah, I know.
That's
I
why
know
I'm
how that
growing
works.
slow. I've been getting anywhere from 4 to 6 people a week ever since I
Yeah.
started. But between people dying, people moving on, some were bandwagon fans, everything else, they stopped watching your show. Those come off, and I was like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to get here. And then this year, because I started doing the shorts, clipping my shows and making them into like little snippets and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting almost 50,000 views a month. I just broke the 600 subscriber plateau. In the last 2 months, I went from 570 to 622, and it's amazing. I was like, where's this coming from? And I love it. And then I start looking at my YouTube analytics, start paying attention more to that. I'm watched in 108 countries, 185 cities around the world. I'm literally worldwide, and it's crazy. But only 3.7% of my viewers are subscribed. And that bugs me.
And make sure, Jeremy, you subscribe to the Ravori Sports podcast
Oh,
if you haven't done so.
you know I have. I know you saw me
Yeah,
click that a long time ago, my friend.
yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
but I, of course I do. And just like I know that you already talked about the way I talk and everything, but we've been on the same show through driving through the top productions together.
Mhm.
So we kind of got familiar that way. And then you were like, hey, he actually knows what he's talking about, and you started
Yeah.
vetting me and everything else, and you're like, wow. But so 2020, I started a Facebook page, and I wasn't part of a podcast at all. And there was a guy from a long time, one of the first podcasts to ever be on YouTube about the Lions. It was called Detroit Lions on the Prowl. It was ran by Jim Bordeaux and Kurt, the Man of Steel, because his last name is Steele. And Jim popped in on one of my live talks, because every Monday after the games or after training camp, because I'd always find a video somewhere of somebody recording so I could pay attention to it and make my own decisions. And I would do like a trivia Monday where I'd pull out some random trivia about Lions players, and we'd talk about the practice or the game that happened over the weekend. And he popped in, and after he was done, he goes, how do you remember those stats? I said, I just do. He goes, that's amazing. He goes, you just rattled off 5 different running backs that had over 1,000 yards since Barry Sanders, and you named what year they did it in. exactly how many yards, exactly how many touchdowns. He goes, I didn't even know we had 5 after Barry Sanders that had 1,000-yard rushing season. I said, yeah, because it was that far in between. And he goes, would you like to be a part of my Friday show? And normally it's just podcasters, but you're knowledgeable enough. I think you could hang with us and talk football and talk ball, and it'll be a great show. You got character. Sure. So I would go to work at the tire shop, and I said, I got to take my lunch at 11 because I'm going live on a podcast about the Lions. They were like, okay. So I'd take my lunch, go in the office, fire up my laptop, and we'd talk ball. And then I bought a set of headphones with a mic and all that type of stuff. Good stuff. And then Jim
I think,
introduced me.
yeah, I think like, yeah, like if you're our age, like you probably did the talk radio thing. You listened to that, all the newspapers and all that stuff. Where does the name come from? The kneecap biting.
Oh, that
Where?
was from Dan Campbell's speech. 100%. I was with a young podcast that Jim Bordeaux hooked me up with in the 2021 season when we hired Dan Campbell. And it was called We Are Lions Nation. And I heard that speech and the kneecap biting stuff. So I just held on to it. I wrote it down and I was trying to figure out how to incorporate that to be a channel. And while I was on the Friday show with them, one of their commenters, because while I was on lunch, I smoked cigarettes. Well, one time I had a little bit of bronchitis. It's the middle of winter, and I wheezed a little bit. They said, "Hey, slow down there, smoking Jeremy B. You're gonna die like Darth Vader over there." And next thing you know, the name stuck. Everybody started calling me Smoking Jeremy B or Smoking JB, and it just stuck. So I kept it. And the original name of the channel was Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B. But then nobody would realize that the kneecap biting went with Dan Campbell, so I changed it to the Motor City Lions.
Yeah, the name I had nothing on it. I had no idea where that came from.
His original speech, he was talking about if you knock our team down, we're going to get up, and when we get up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. And if you knock us down again, we're going to bite off the other kneecap. And if you knock us down again, we're still going to get up, and we'll figure out what to hit. And he preached that mentality, and you could hear it. And then when they did the hard knock in year 2 with Aiden Hutchinson
Yeah.
as a rookie, you could feel that he actually cared about that team. It wasn't like some of these coaches that just say it. You could see he physically cared about his players.
Would actually cry a lot of times, like when he first got it. He's been emotional several times.
Oh yeah.
Real quick, South Florida Tribune. You take. I don't want to go to the Don Lemon thing and that what's happened, but I thought of you in the one sense in the fact that you take journalism very seriously. You're writing, seriously, as far as that goes. Would you, if you had the opportunity, is that the route you want to go? Is that all you want to do is just be in writing?
Writing and broadcasting. I don't call myself a podcaster anymore because I try to stick to the factual stuff. Your podcasters always go for the clickbait, the rumor mill, all that stuff. I'm the guy that shoots them down 90% of the time because if they don't make sense, I don't talk about it. I just, I look at what's fiscally responsible. If you study, use spot track and over the cap between the two, you get an average of what that salary is going to be, and you're able to talk about it. So that's what I do, and I stick to actual news that comes out of Allen Park because we're a media.
Really ridiculous how many pages are wrong, bro. I mean,
Right.
There's one that shows up on just Google all the time. It's just wrong purposely all the time. I'm like, I can't believe they're allowing, get the name of it, TWSN or something. Like, what are we doing? It's like just says the wrong stuff,
Right.
Intentionally. So that's a longer conversation about like the quality of media and things like that. Where are we in media? You think in this space? They're just getting rid of a lot of. I mean, even the Washington Post now is not allowing. It's not going to be covering NBA anymore. They said, at least on the road. We're no longer sending Caps, Wizards. No, we're not doing it.
It's
So
crazy.
where are we at, man?
Media has changed to where it's so socially driven and so opinionated. It depends on which side of the bird that the owners fall on anymore. You get one that seems like it's mostly factual, but it still has some BS out there. And then you got the other one that seems like it's more BS, but every now and then has something factual on there. If you take both sides and you put them together and use your common sense and your brain, you can put the story together that should be wrote. The unbiased story, the way we had it growing up with guys like Tom Brokaw and Walter Cronkite and Andy Rooney on 60 Minutes before he got way liberal at the end. You, they were all right down the middle
Even
news shows.
even 60 minutes, for God's sake, nowadays. I mean, that was
Yeah.
like, I mean, what are we talking about?
When
60
they got rid
minutes?
of Mike Wallace, when they got rid of Mike Wallace is when the show changed. And
I just that's, if you ever study journalism, you always want to be on 60 Minutes, or have an interest in 60 Minutes, because they were the straight news, the hard straight news down the middle,
unbiased, ask the hard questions.
Real quick, Huddle Sports Network. So you guys are a daily thing. You guys come on every morning and you and how is that? I mean, how is that doing this like on a daily basis and every day? There's a lot more than what people realize, as far as getting this done like on a daily basis in terms of that.
It takes me anywhere from a half hour to 2 hours to prep my show, because I want to have enough content to at least fill a half hour to an hour of programming. That way it's TV friendly, because the Huddle Sports Network is actually an app for TVs on Roku and Amazon Fire Stick. You can download the app, and it's 24 hours podcast. Whenever they don't have one live, they just reshow one of the older hour-long episodes. And it's a lot of fun. But they have their own StreamYard. It was getting to the point where the pricing points for a single person to do the StreamYard stuff that was getting out of hand. So we all kind of banded together. We were part of a trash talking group for the NFC North. It's really how it got started. And we all said, well, why don't we just do one StreamYard, pay one guy the money each month, and we can save ourselves some money and get with more platforms, more shows, and be able to do everything. And that's how we got where we are. And then they decided to add the app because they found a contract where they could afford it monthly. There's like 4 guys paying for it. So kudos to them for doing it. I didn't ask to be a part of that, but I don't mind. It's $10 without it or $20 with a month. I'll pay the $20 to be on TV.
Jeremy, thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure. I think your story. I think your son would be very proud of everything you're doing, man. And I think all of you fans, and you get the most people coming into the open mic too. Like that's
my chat is very lively.
Yeah.
When I post it to my channel, my chat is lively. They pop in. Some of them are funny, like I am. Some of them are straightforward and asking good questions. But all of them will make comments, and I love that. I have about 20 to 40 guys that'll comment every show I do live, whether it's my show or not. And that's rare to see that. My half-hour show the other day had 130 comments. A half hour.
You're getting somewhere, sir. You and Ken are definitely. You and Ken are just rolling right along, and so it's awesome to see you. Tell the people where they can find you, sir. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, how I got found by the South Florida Tribune is Scott Morganroth originally lived in Detroit. Used to be on WJR with a show called The Sports Exchange. Well, he had another show with one of my guests was a regular guest on his show called Inside the Pigskin, and they were talking about the difference between the Patricia era and the Dan Campbell era because it was coming into the 2022 season then. And I said, "Oh, you mean Matt Patricia and Boob Quinn?" In the comments.
I knew
And
something was coming from Matt Patricia.
yeah,
I knew you were going to miss that.
yeah. So right after the show was done, he looked me up on Facebook and messaged me, and I invited him to go look at my channel, and he saw my very first article I ever wrote in that 2021 season when the Ravens won on that 66-yard Justin Tucker field goal that shouldn't have happened by the letter of the rule of the NFL. And that's what I named the article, as the greatest kick that never should have happened. Hey, he read it. He goes, wow, you did a great job of making that last 2-minute drive be a nice 700-word read. It kept, even though your grammar's a little off, your spelling is off, he goes, the read is amazing. It draws you in. You gave enough stats and you gave enough play-by-play that it made it. You even called out the fact that the right tackle jumped when the play clock hit 0 before they hiked the ball. He goes, that's a penalty in itself that didn't get called, and then the delay of game, and they didn't have any timeouts when they went to clock the ball with 7 seconds left, which should have been a 10-second runoff.
Tell the people where they can find you, sir.
SouthFloridaTribune.com, underneath the Motor City Tribune heading, is where you can find my writings. I think I got like 18 pages of articles on there over the past 4 seasons. You can also find me because I've started writing for the Jags and the Bucks at roundtable.io. I like that app a little bit better. It is an app you can download on your phone. You can follow any team you want, whether it's there's even cricket and all sorts of stuff on there. I don't know, but you can follow whatever you want. You can follow cryptocurrency if you're into investing as well, which I'm starting to dabble with. And then you can find me on my YouTube channel, which is Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions, where I go live Monday through Friday at noon, Wednesday nights at 9:30 with my NFL Roundtable Talk, Tuesday nights at 9 with the Open Sports Mic with the Driving to the Top Productions crew, Thursday night with Fire Up, Friday night with my Lions Fire Up, Lions Fan Cave chat. All of those go live somewhere between 9 and 9:30. Depends. South Florida Tribune, they don't schedule it. They just set up a live and wait to go live. And I was like, okay, it's 9:30. When we going?
That's kind of the newspaper business. They're so far behind on this stuff. It's not even funny in some cases. But I'm not going to keep going. But like,
media has taken a left turn from what we grew up with. How's that?
Put it this way. If you and I can do it with very little resources, I'm just amazed what they don't do when they have millions of dollars in corporate. I mean, like, that's a whole nother.
The reason I started writing my own articles on my Facebook page about the Lions was there was an article in the USA Today, and this guy's a paid journalist, has got his degree, wrote an article about Barry Sanders. And 10 times in a row, he made the same double negative talking about Barry Sanders' career. Never had he never missed a Pro Bowl. Never had he never not been at least an All-Pro, whether first or second team. Never had he never had less than 1,000 yards rushing. Never had he never had less than 15 touchdowns. And I'm like going, he said that 10 different times. And I was like, I don't even think Dragon, naturally speaking, if you had that on your, because that's what you had to use on your computer in order to talk to it for it to type for you, would let you say never had he never, because its thesaurus would throw it out and fix it to never had he ever.
Right. Jeremy, thank you very much, sir, and thank all of you for watching the Ravori Sports Podcast. Like and subscribe to all of our social media podcast, all of our social media platforms, all of Jeremy's ones that he just mentioned, Ravori Sports Podcast and Driving to the Top Productions. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Y'all have a great day.